Hello, my name is Clifton Gibbons, and today I'd like to talk to you about my research paper called The Queer Aspect, LGBTQ Character Portrayals in Modern Cinema and Culture. So before I begin, I just want to kind of give you a little information about myself so you have an understanding of who I am and why I've chosen this particular topic. I am a graduate student of Auburn University Montgomery pursuing a degree in English. My focus is centered on issues relating to and surrounding the LGBTQ community members, families, friends, and allies. As a proud gay male who has recognized the impact of film within my own life experiences, it is my belief that Hollywood has positively impacted the perception of members of the LGBTQ community on mainstream society through its development of more authentic character portrayals. So, what do I mean by authentic character portrayals? Well, we have some examples here of character portrayals that are currently on television or have been on television. We have Will and Grace, where Will Truman plays a top-notch New York City lawyer, which is a departure from the stereotypical salon stylist, so on and so forth. And then, of course, we have in the middle Glee, which is a very popular television show that is currently airing still. And one character in particular on that show, his name is Kurt. While Kurt kind of fits some of the stereotypical molds, he also negates those molds because he's not soft-spoken, but more outspoken, more vocal. He is a strong advocate of who he is, and he has the respect of his peers as well. And then, of course, we have an unusual character, and that's on Warehouse 13, Agent Stephen Jinks. Stephen Jinks is a gay character on that show who, at the first start of the show, when his character was introduced, everyone considered him to be straight. And his partner, Claudia Donovan, she actually thought at one point in time he was hitting on her, and he's like, no, I'm gay. And the entire mood of the show changes because of that knowledge, and you see a more positive, normalized view of character portrayals being given. So, my research hypothesis centered around cinema and broadcast television, aiming to influence and shift societal views concerning issues surrounding the LGBTQ community by dismissing offensive stereotypes with accurate character portrayals. That was my hypothesis, which helped me build my thesis, which states, as the driving force behind modern cultural perceptions, the American motion picture industry has put forth great efforts in recent years to reshape the long misrepresented stereotypes of the LGBTQ community through presentation of normalized gay and lesbian characters and storylines that have created sympathy and better representation of both LGBTQ individuals and the community at large. And below that, you'll see that there are some examples of these very movies that actually challenged stereotypes in their own unusual and unique way. One movie, Philadelphia, which was made in 1993, if I remember correctly, starred Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington. He was a top-notch lawyer once again, which challenges the stereotype. Then we have something that's a little bit more stereotypical. We have Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, which features Wesley Snipes, Patrick Swayze, and John Leguizamo. And they're drag queens, but the twist for this particular film is that these drag queens have somewhat of a self-awakening to each of their characters in their own unique ways. And then, of course, we have The Birdcage, where we have the peril and the struggle of trying to fit in with society and having society accept you from the point of view of a conservative individual and their child trying to marry a more liberal family and their child. And then finally, the movie that kind of broke through all of the stereotypes, broke all the molds of the stereotypes, was Brokeback Mountain. And Brokeback Mountain, just for synopsis sake, Was about two men who fell in love. Both of them are cowboys. Kills one stereotype. And then the other stereotype is that they are rugged, manly men. Some research questions that I asked myself is, do these movies reinforce stereotypes concerning homosexuality in our society? Do these productions create imagery that focuses on more tolerance or more bias? Are characters being portrayed in more stereotypical sense or more accurately? And that had a follow-up question. If not accurately, has there been an improvement? The next question, when portrayed accurately, is there an expected social response? And have movies and broadcast television improved or further hindered the progress of civil equality for the LGBTQ community? So what I did, I used my tools and I did research. And I chose to take the time to watch each one of these movies: To Wong Fu, Brokeback Mountain, Philadelphia, The Longest Yard, which was actually a movie about football being in prison systems and having the stereotype that was presented was the cheerleaders, men dressed as women. Of course, I saw some episodes of Glee, Will and Grace, and of course the newest sitcom, Modern Family. And what I recognized when I watched these movies were some general stereotypes that were addressed in one shape or another. Effeminateness, professions and trades, mannerisms, and social interactions. And what I got out of those movies after realizing the social element that it's knocking at or wanting to address inadvertently would be employment equality, marriage equality, civil rights recognition, and self-reflection. As I attempted to do all of my research, I used the AUM Library Online Journal Resource Engine to pull up my articles, and was able to find some really extraordinary articles that gave me lots of insight. And then after I read those articles and their take on the information that they're providing to me, plus the things that I recognized by simply watching the subject matter itself, I had a subject exploration, and I asked myself, in To Wong Fu, what stereotypes were addressed? We have effeminateness, mannerisms, and social interactions, and some of the perceived outcomes that you received from that movie were topics on civil rights recognition and self-reflection. For Will and Grace, it was professions and trades and social interactions as the stereotypes, once again being a lawyer, outside the stereotype. And the perceived outcomes that it was poking at would be employment equality and self-reflection. And of course, one of the most prominent, newest sitcoms actually establishes all of the stereotypes and pokes at all of the perceived outcomes. Once again, dealing with effeminateness, professions and trades, mannerisms, social interactions, and the outcomes of employment equality, marriage equality, civil rights recognition, and self-reflection. And then, of course, Brokeback Mountain, one of the very main sources of my paper, actually, because it has such a strong, prominent feature in the scope of my paper. It addressed effeminateness in a way that all gay men are not effeminate, and even two men, manly men, can actually be gay and in love with each other. Talks about professions and trades, them being cowboys. Of course, their mannerisms, not expressing any female mannerisms whatsoever. And then, of course, social interactions, how they were perceived by their community. And all of the perceived outcomes that I mentioned earlier were recognized in this film. So, also in my findings, I realized that Hollywood has gone several steps, leaps and bounds to try and improve their relationship with the LGBT community from previous stereotypes that they introduced long before the MPAA rating came out. They showed a true desire for change. They used their platform to prompt some social change, political influence, evidence of social change. And I have a few representative quotes. This quote is by far the most powerful quote that I had for my paper. And it says, the most important factor in changing attitudes, however, is getting to know someone who is gay in a way that allows for real understanding and empathy rather than dismissive stereotyping. This transformative knowing can be with a real person or it can be with a believable fictional character. Another quote talks about the achievement of Brokeback Mountain and its gay characters as showing it not just as a love story, but as a distinctly gay story, meaning that it's speaking to real life things that the LGBTQ community faces. This next quote, actually, Brokeback Mountain was much more than an artistic success. Most importantly, it evoked a national discussion on gender, sexuality, and about love and homophobia. And that's absolutely true as we see the progression of anti-discrimination laws, anti-bullying laws, and the national coverage of the marriage equality with our Supreme Court. All of these things can be traced back as being prompted because of the emotional connection our social culture received from this movie. My last quote, one of my last quotes, says, the shift in depiction, although uneven and still evidencing stigmatizing depictions, at times follows the dominant logic of normative heterosexuality that makes homosexuality into a minority identity while maintaining heterosexuality as the normative identity of the majority. However, this normalizing trend argues for a newfound respect and view of the homosexual as a normal individual deserving of recognition and tolerance, and if not, equality. And this was my second most powerful quote that I used within my paper. It says, beside me sat a dignified, elderly Middle Eastern gentleman, complete with turban. Some rows in front, near the screen, was a group of teenagers, male and female. I'm afraid I assumed, and one should never make such assumptions, that they had come to express their heterosexual superiority aloud, and I was all ready to shout back. But they appeared quite rapt throughout the movie, as did the rest of the audience. And this came from film critic Robin Wood, who actually sat in on the viewing of Brokeback Mountain. Once again, establishing that when there's a believable fictional character presented, it has an effect on anyone that has the ability to feel and sense their own emotions. So some of the social implications that I perceived that came out of this and was also introduced dealt with reduced hostility among LGBT members, reduced stereotyping, an increase in diversity training. One example would be our safe zone training here at AUM. There's an increased diversity training throughout employers nationwide. We also have the acceptance amongst our peers. And then the political implications, once again, discussions on homophobia, the enactment of non-discrimination laws and bullying laws, and the national attention we have on the marriage equality, which is a very huge element. And something that's not talked about as much, but deserves the recognition, healthcare coverage availability to domestic partners. That's something that does not get covered as much, but those are political implications that we can see have progressed because of the emotional impact of Brokeback Mountain on our culture and society. So in conclusion, as the Hollywood machine creates more authentic gay lesbian character portrayals that permeate mainstream society, the attitudes of proponents of homosexual men and women begin to change towards, at least, tolerance for their fellow men. Portrayals found in Brokeback Mountain show that not all gay men are feminine. The character of Will Truman from Will and Grace recognized that gay men are not just stylists in a salon or interior decorators. Cameron Mitchell, and Lily from Modern Family represent a cultural shift of the family that implies the need for marriage equality. And as the gay community pushes forward towards total equality with their straight counterparts, they are vindicated more and more so by the progression of Hollywood's influence. When a person connects with a character in a way that evokes their emotion, they're able to feel it. They are sure to experience a change of heart, mind, and conscience. And with that being said, I thank you so much for your time and your attention. If you'd like to get more information on my subject matter, please feel free to read over my paper. I also provide you with a works cited area that provides you with location of those items. So if you want to do more research on your own time, you have that as well. Thank you for your time and have a good day.